Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Black Tower Podcast. I am Andrew.
And I'm Aaron.
And this is our first recording after the new year. So happy 2019 and good riddance 2018, you cancer of a year.
I'm going to shake the dust of that year off of my feet. We've already had people die this year.
Oh, yeah. There was just like a really bad crash on I-95. I was seeing on the news today, like 7 people died.
Yeah, we had up where I live in Toledo or by Toledo, there was a shooting yesterday. It was pretty nasty.
Yeah. Sure it wasn't just like all the rounds coming back down from like the redneck celebration. I can say that because I'm from the South and I grew up redneck. So
the rednecks don't live anywhere near Toledo. They won't touch it. They don't live close enough.
Fair enough. Isn't that where like
we all live out in the country?
You ever watch that old show MASH?
Yes, I love MASH.
Isn't that where Max Klinger was from, Toledo?
Yeah, Corporal Klinger was from Toledo. He talked about a specific hot dog joint that he wanted to go back to all the time. I won't mention their name because they're not a sponsor. But he always wanted to go back to this hot dog spot, and it's an actual restaurant. It's actually pretty dope.
Oh,
they make
nice.
They make a great hot dog. They call it the mother of all dogs.
Oh, nice.
And like the mother of all bombs, right? But it's the mother of all dogs, and it's like 14-inch long hot dog in a bun, and it's loaded down with chili and onions and shredded cheese in there and whatever else you want. That's fantastic.
That sounds absolutely delicious.
Yeah, until you have to take a shit the next day.
Anyway, we'll get the spoiler warning out of the way as usual. This episode covers the first of the mini books of the Wheel of Time series. If you have not read The Eye of the World, you are in danger of minor spoilers. If you haven't read The Eye of the World, stop, go read it, fall in love. Yeah,
it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, such a good book. I actually just I was telling you, Aaron, before we started recording, that one of my coworkers who comes and stays with me once a month for work, I just handed him one of my extra copy of The Eye of the World for him to start reading. So pretty stoked to see if he enjoys it or not.
You know, I read something the other day. Everybody keeps saying that reading is dead, or actual like physical book reading is dead and everything's on ebooks now. But the last 5 years, book sales have continued to go up. That people are reading more and more books and buying more and more books now than ever before. And I was like, damn.
I think we can think like the kind of like only way I can think to describe is like hipster movement, where it's this whole like bring back old stuff and make it new again kind of thing.
My sister, for Christmas, she wanted stuff for refills and stuff for her fountain pen. She writes with a fountain pen. And,
oh man!
And I'm like, it's more ambitious than I am for sure.
Yeah, you know what I want? I want one of those like inkwells and quill pens. Like, have you seen the Family Guy skit from that where he's just like writing and just like dip 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 dip. Marital concerns continue to vex me. Dip 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 dip.
Yeah. Dear Diary. Okay, so today we're talking about The Eye of the World. We're going to do kind of an overview and break some stuff down. But we wanted to do this quote from the beginning of the first chapter.
Yeah,
and it goes like this.
Like after the prologue, yeah.
Yeah, so after the prologue is over, in the beginning of the first chapter, and actually every book at the beginning of the first chapter has some variation of this. It's kind of a long-running theme.
Prepare for chills.
And it goes, the wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the third age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, A wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning.
Dude, I actually got chills listening to it. That gives me chills every time. Like that's how you know you're about to start some good shit right there.
I
You
know,
know?
and it's partly because it's at the beginning of every book, so it like it's a memory trigger. Like, you know, you can get triggered by a scent or a sound. It will trigger a memory.
Mm.
This is like it triggers your brain into knowing, okay, some good shit's about to happen, and we're gonna read. We're gonna read or listen to. If you listen to the audiobooks, we're gonna listen to some good stuff.
Oh yeah. I think WOT spoilers. I've only been able to listen to like one, maybe two of their podcasts. And I think they start off their podcast by kind of reading this a little bit. I know the one that I remember right now, at the beginning of started off with that. And it was like, well, it was like at least a couple chapters into um whichever book they're at right now. I can't remember right at the top of my head. But yeah. So some kind of stuff about the Eye of the World, as far as the physical book itself goes. Um, it was published by Tor Books and released on January 15th of 1990, and it's 814 pages long. And of course is essentially the exposition for the entire series.
And if that sounds long to you, just wait till we get to some of these other books.
Oh yeah. It was actually re-released on January 2nd of 2002 as two separate books aimed at young adult literature market, with larger text and a handful of illustrations. And they were
And
called go ahead.
there was an extra prologue in that release too. When you hear
Yeah.
us talk about a prologue called Ravens, it was in that 2-part release for young adults. They wrote in an extra prologue for one of the characters.
Oh yeah, because that was like that focused on like a 9-year-old Egwene Alvear.
Yeah, I've never actually read it.
I haven't either, but I really want to. But the two books that were that two separate book release, the first one was From the Two Rivers, and the second one was To the Blight. Which those of you that have read it will kind of understand where the division comes. I imagine it's probably about 50-50, but
Yeah,
yeah,
thinking about it, I can imagine in my brain where that where they would separate those two out.
yeah. But so as fans of the series know, the book alternates chapter by chapter, relatively the point of view kind of deal. That you come to learn the different symbols that you see is underneath the header for each chapter or right above it on the first page of each chapter that denotes what the main point of view for that chapter is.
Or if it's not related to the point of view of the person, it's related to like what it's going to deal about.
Yeah.
Like you could have a point of view chapter for Rand, and it would have the Trolloc symbol on it because there's going to be Trollocs in that chapter.
Yeah. Yeah, I just got done. Actually, I'm just about to start my reread of Crown of Swords.
Nice.
I remember seeing, yeah, I'm stoked.
Nice.
Because, but yeah, I can't get further into that without spoiling some other stuff. But, so some more overview, talking about that point of view. Well, let's talk about the characters, the kind of central characters we meet first, and then we'll talk about like how much point of view or of the book each kind of character gets.
Okay. First and foremost, either good or bad, depending on who you are and what you like, Rand al'Thor is probably the main character, or arguably the main character of the series and of this book specifically. There's other books where he's not so prominent, but it's Rand al'Thor, Baron Brea?
Abara.
Abara. Thank you.
Mm.
Nynaeve Almera, Edwin Alvear, Louis Theron Telemon, and Maureen Damodred have minor roles, but they do have point of views in these books.
Yeah.
This
And of course,
book.
with Moraine, as we all know, comes Aulan Mandragorn. Of course.
Mandragorn.
Um,
For the longest time, I thought his last name was Mandragon.
yeah, I thought that too. And then, like, especially when we started doing the podcast, I had to look more into it. I was like, wait. I do that with a lot of people's names. Like
Right.
for Lewis Theron and everything, it was always like Lewis Theron, and it was always
Right.
like Arthur Hawking instead of like Arthur Hawkwing.
It's Arthur Hawkwing.
Yeah.
Hawkwing.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was Arthur.
Yeah.
Like King Arthur.
Yeah. Oh, and we can't forget Matrim Cawthon as well.
Matrim Cawthon is a main character in the series, but he has no point of view chapters in this book.
Yeah. But he still hangs around. I mean, like,
and we'll kind of explain why that is when we get into talking about the book specifically.
Yeah. Some other characters that we meet that don't really get point of view chapters per se. We meet Min Farshaw. We meet Dane Bornhold, Padden Fane, Baalzamon, Mordeth. We meet the entity Mashadar, the infamous Baal Dolmen.
We can't forget Elaine Tracond and her brothers Gawain and Galad.
Yeah, Galad Damodred.
Who's her half brother?
Yeah. Which with them, of course, comes Queen Morghese and Aleda. We also meet the Ogier Loyal, and we start to learn. We'll get more into who he is later, but Logain Ablar. You also meet Elias Machera, Jofram or Jefram Bornhold.
Jeffram Bornhold.
There you go.
We're introduced to the characters from the Two Rivers, which is the homeland of Randall Thor, Baron, Nynaeve, Edwin, and Matt Cawthon. We get to experience all the glory of the Tinkers, and we kind of explore kind of the country that they're all a part of, which is Andor, and then a little bit of the Borderlands.
Yeah, I mean it's a really good intro to the entire series, because I mean there's of course that iconic scene that it opens up within when you get into the beyond the prologue of Rand walking down a road with a cart and Bella the creator. I mean the horse.
Bella the shaggy brown mare.
Yeah, the shaggy brown mare.
And his dad, Tam Althor.
Yeah. Delivering, cask of I think was it brandy and cider?
Yeah, they have brandy that they make and a hard apple cider also that they make that they're delivering to the local inn.
Yeah.
Which is run by Edwin's father.
Yeah. Bran Alvear?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course Mistress Alvear being Egwene's mother.
Who is apparently the best cook in all the land.
Yeah, man, you can't beat Mistress Alvear's honey cakes.
Oh my god. I wish I had some right now.
Yeah. You ever had honey cake?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had some for the first time like maybe a year ago or so. It was actually really good. But yeah, so this is whole kind of like expedition bringing us into you're kind of in a very Tolkien ish way. introduced to Robert Jordan's kind of version of the Shire. It's this relaxed, laid back, out in the middle of kind of nowhere community. It's a small, relatively community that everybody knows everybody, um, and everybody just kind of gets along and helps each other as best as they can. And most people are kind of left to their own. You know, you've got the notorious kind of troublemakers. Yeah, the Copelands,
And the
um,
Congress.
yeah, and the Congers. Um, but it's just nice, like really homey kind of. I guess like for a comparison, real world, like kind of stereotypical Southern kind of farmy community, where everybody's, you know, for the most part, you know, nice to each other and like, you know, howdy, ma'am. You know, even though we don't say howdy in the South, not seriously at least.
Well, I've been to certain parts of Texas where
That's Texas. This is like
they
Texas used to be its own country. Okay, they're
it's a
their own
different
entity.
Texas is a different South.
Texas is its own brand of South.
And where different places that you go in Texas are completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so huge, and there's so many great metropolitan areas too that are not out in the country.
Yeah.
But yes, the Two Rivers area, specifically Edmonds Field, which is their kind of village, is very quaint and rural, and he spends some time detailing kind of their system of government and how there's a village council of kind of men who think they run things, and then there's a secret, not so secret council called the Women's Circle who really run things, and that the power rests with them, and they all kind of answer to a third party known as the Village Wisdom, who is in this case Nynaeve, who's just a couple years older than the rest of our four kind of main characters who come from there. Rand, Matt, Perrin, and Edwin are all about the same age, with Nynaeve being a little older. But she kind of handles healing, and tending to people sick and wounded, using herbal remedies and kind of folksy backwoods old wives' tales type things, you know.
Yeah.
Put this on it and it'll magically get better, and she's really good at it. But she kind of runs everything through fear and intimidation and an iron fist, and everybody's kind of scared of her. But the author Robert Jordan spends a lot of time developing and cluing us into how things work and how things interact, before he kind of launches us into action.
Yeah. So we kind of get the first foreshadowing of action within that first iconic scene, where Rand notices a strange cloaked figure that appears to be watching him and his father going down the road, and he makes the disturbing observation that even though it's super fucking windy, it doesn't seem to disturb the stranger's cloak. And he tells his father about it, and his father, Tam, of course, he kind of goes on. He's kind of plays it off like there's no way, but he also kind of goes on high alert, which is definitely indicative of Tam's backstory. For those of you that may know it, and definitely, you know, kind of sets the stage for some things we see from Tam later on.
Right. And that scene is the most pointed to and referenced as evidence that Robert Jordan let Tolkien influence his work, just because of its connection to the Lord of the Rings and the ring wraiths that are black riders who are kind of in two worlds at once and kind of there and not there. And I mean, we could go for 2 or 3 whole episodes just talking about, well, we did it. It's a fade. If you want to reference back to one of our earlier episodes, it's a fade. or a mere draw.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so they kind of get to the town, and Rand wanted to spend the night, but they wanted not, and they go back to the farm, and that's where we get introduced to another obvious kind of Tolkien influence with the Trollocs that attack.
right. Back at his own farm, he sees his dad, who is like a normal dude to him, attack and kill these Trollocs with a sword and tell him to run. And there's this whole scene of his dad fighting and him running, and them trying to stay alive, and all the sheep are killed, and the Trollocs are just bad, and they're kind of a mashed together amalgamation of different kinds of animals.
Yeah, it's important to note that like wearing a sword is not common in Edmondsfield. And in fact, we found Rand didn't even know his dad had a sword.
Yeah, they're so out of the way, and the village council and the women's circle and the wisdom keep everything so locked down that there's not really. I get a sense that there's really not any violence or hardly any crime either. I mean, unless you count Matt's mischief and the shenanigans that he gets up to
Vandal.
as crime. It's about the biggest thing they have to worry about is what Matt is going to do
That badger.
next. Yeah, well, there's specifically mention of he had captured a badger, or somebody else had captured one for him, and he was going to release it on the village green during a ceremony to try and scare all the girls.
Yeah, so like very innocent, kind of like homely, like they're
and
they're so innocent,
untouched by the outside world.
Yeah, but the outside world, as is to be fair, typical fantasy cliche, the outside world quickly crashes in on our peaceful Robert Jordan version of the Shire. But so while he was in town, and this is important to mention now because it's important for what happens after the Trolloc attack. Rand and you've come to find out, most of the village youth have met this stranger, beautiful woman with this hard-faced man that follows her around. That we learn, of course, later is Moraine de Modred and Alan Mandragorn, and Aes Sedai being Moraine and Lan being her warder, which the entire village discovers when the Trollocs attack the actual village, and Moraine sets about launching fireballs and bursting Trollocs into flames, and Lan is running around, some kind of what am I trying to think? Like Smash Bros. Assassin or something.
Yeah. The closest analogy that I can think of for Lan, especially as it relates to Tolkien, is Aragorn or Strider.
Yeah.
And I wonder if he didn't specifically model Lan, at least in the first book, off of that character. There's way more development that happens for Lan later. But at first, he's this real silent and mysterious person with some sort of a past that he won't talk about. And, it really does remind me of Aragorn.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But in the process of the fighting at their farm, Rand's father becomes injured with what we find out is a blade made in Thakandar that carries that even a scratch from it can be completely fatal. But luckily, there just so happens to be an Aes Sedai in the village at this time that is able to heal Pam's father, but has basically identified Rand, Matt, and Perrin, who were all born within, I think, a couple days, if not a week or two of each other, as someone that the Dark One, as the Dark One is interested in them for some reason. And she basically tells them, your village isn't going to be safe as long as you're here. you come with me to Tar Valon, you can be safe. Your village will be safe, and we'll figure out why the Dark One wants you. And most of them don't want to go. There's only one person that actually is like goes out of her way to go, and initially, which is a queen, of course.
Right, because she wants to escape the boring village life and see adventures and fights and chases. She doesn't know what she's getting herself into.
But so yeah, and they all finally like agree. They understand. You know, Tam's like, keep the sword. I understand. I'll see you soon. And they head out on the road for Tar Valon. And this is where our country bumpkins kind of get their first view of the world beyond Edmondsfield, because they go beyond Watch Hill and into Belleron. Am I saying that right? Belleron?
Yeah, they went
Barrelon?
Watch Hill, then Terrence Ferry, then Belleron.
Yeah. I think it's Barrelon.
Right.
Yeah.
We should take a second to talk about the prologue. We've mentioned it a couple of times, and it's important to later portions of this book a little bit, but later in the entire series. There's a lot of things that it sets up. And I'm not going to go into all of them because we're trying to avoid some spoilers for the rest of the series here. But there's a character, Louis Theron Telemon, who was known as the Dragon. He was known to be the most powerful channeler of his time, which would have been the Second Age, or the Age of Legends. And it's kind of right at the end. Something has happened. He's kind of going crazy. He's in this like wreck of a palace where there's tapestries on the wall. We see that it's kind of a rich place, but it's all in shambles. And he's kind of looking for his wife. And then he's met by somebody who's talking to him, and he's trying to find his wife so that they can all have dinner or go singing or something. And the guy, there's some back and forth, and they're taunting each other, and he heals him because he was crazy. He was mad. And he sees all the destruction that he caused. He had killed everybody who had any kind of blood relation to him. He killed them all. And it kind of, the revelation of that drives him so crazy drives him so depressed, I think is a better way of putting it, that he kind of flies off into the middle of nowhere and channels so much of the power that he turns himself into a mountain.
Ye Old Dragon Mount.
Ye Old Dragon Mount, which is the highest mountain known. Nobody can climb it. It's huge. It kind of rearranges some of the geography when that happens. And we find out later that this was during the breaking, which lasted for, I just found out the other day, it lasted for several hundred years.
Mm-hmm.
Until the last male channeler was stilled or killed, was when the breaking ended. And the breaking kind of rearranged the geography of everything. It was a really traumatic event. And we hear from Moraine that the Dark One is looking for the reborn version of the dragon, the new iteration of him in this age. And she thinks that it's one of the three boys, but she's not sure which one. And she says that's why the Trollocs attacked. That's why they're after you.
So on their way to Barrelon, they're chased by Trollocs, Murdral, and Drakkar, which are a form of flying creature that we learn more about later. They actually only glimpse it, I think, once in the night.
Let's be honest, they're vampires.
Basically what it is.
They're giant vampire bat people.
It's like giant vampire bat meets Dementor. from Harry
Yeah.
Potter. But they make it there to Barrel-Aron, and that's where they meet Min Farshaw, who we learn and see auras and images around people that are indicative of their future. Sometimes she knows what it means, but most of the time she even says, she's like, I have no clue what most of the shit means. I just see things, you know. And we also meet Dane Bornhold, who is an officer of the Children of the Light, who we know are called White Cloaks traditionally. They meet Pat and Fane again, who they believed he was a peddler that had come to Two Rivers every year and kind of herald in when spring was coming about after the end of winter. And they all thought that he was dead after the Trolloc attack on Evans Field, but Rand meets him, sees him there, and realizes that he's not. But it's there in Barrel-Aron that Rand and Matt and Perrin start experiencing dreams where they are taunted by a man who calls himself Baalzamon, and given
Who
the
they
name,
think is the dark one.
yeah. But and then shortly before they leave Barrel-Aron, Nynaeve shows up, and she's kind of on her high horse. She's like, the village council was arguing about what to do. In the women's circle, we talked and we decided it was going to take too long. Someone needed to go, and I volunteered, and so I'm here. She's like, I'm going to bring you all back home because this Aes Sedai has kidnapped you. But ultimately, she's convinced to go with them. Yeah. So they leave Barrel-Aron, and again find themselves being chased by Trollocs and Murdral, and it's way more than before. I think it's like several hundred. I think Lan says it's like 5 fists.
Yeah, and so they're
something.
Right, they're closing in on them from different directions. It's a coordinated attack, and each fist is 100 Trollocs and at least one Myrddraal in each fist.
Yeah,
because as we know from our research into the Myrddraal episode, the Myrddraal control the Trollocs and are like their
like a form of like it suppresses their more primal bestial nature and can get them like organized for like military strategy.
I was going to say, if you want to think of it in our military terms from now, a Myrddraal would be something like an officer, with the Trollocs being soldiers.
Yeah.
If you want to boil it down to real basic.
Yeah. But so they're surrounded on all sides pretty much. They get into a bit of fighting where the boys actually do surprisingly decent. I mean, they're not, legends of battle, but they're not, stabbing themselves in the foot.
Right.
And they're watching.
You get the sense that Trollocs aren't great fighters.
Yeah. They're watching Lan run around and like freaking chop things heads off and fight Myrddraal, and they're like, no one can fight a Myrddraal, and Lan's like dead. Like he kills the Myrddraal, not Lan dies.
Yeah, Lan's like, hold my beer if I drank beer. He's too focused. He's so focused on killing Shadow Spawn that he doesn't even drink, I don't think. I don't think it's mentioned once in the series of him touching any kind of alcohol.
I don't know.
He takes his duty pretty seriously, is my point.
Yeah. But so they're like, where can we go? And Moraine's like, there's one place, and Lan's like, no. And she's like, there's no other option. And so then we learn of the ancient, abandoned, and forever tainted city of Shadar Logoth, which is a place that even Shadow Spawn, so Myrddraal, Trollocs, that kind of thing, don't want to go in. But being the young boys that they are and anxious to see around and not knowing what's going on, of course, because Moraine doesn't really like to tell anybody anything, they started exploring. They meet a strange man, Mordeth, and he offers, he's like, hey, I found a bunch of gold. If you'll help me carry it, I can't carry it all. You can have what's left. But then after he learns that there's an Aes Sedai with him, he tries to kill them, and they escape from his attempt to murder them, and little do we know that Matt has grabbed himself a little souvenir that's important as it goes on.
Yeah, he grabbed a little trinket.
Just a little trinket.
Just a little trinket.
Yeah.
They meet back up with the rest of the group at their set bedding down place for the night inside of an abandoned building, and everybody kind of freaks out because of what happened, and they try and leave. And we're introduced to the Mist, which is the extension of Mordeath in the city, or the extension of Shadar Logoth. It's the what's left in
Mashadar.
Yeah, that's and Moraine tells everybody that if the mist touches you, it's going to kill you. They all get kind of separated by the mist and driven by the Trollocs. The mist kills a lot of Trollocs too, and some Fades. And everybody gets away, although they're all separated into different groups. I think it's Rand, Matt, and Tom are all together, and Perrin and Edwin are together, leaving Moraine, Lan, and Nynaeve all separate. We're in 3 different groups. And Moraine is trying to track everybody down and put everybody back together, but everybody's kind of going their separate ways and thinking of that they know the best way to get where they're going. Edwin and Perrin encounter Elias, and Perrin develops a new ability which is not related to the weaving or the one power, and it's the wolf speaking ability. He can talk to wolves. His eyes are now yellow, and he can see like in the dark. He's got an enhanced hearing and smelling, and it's really cool. And they meet some tinkers, and they're just in general trying to get to Camelin and then Tarvalon. They meet some tinkers and hang out with them. We learn about the Way of the Leaf. We meet Aram, who is a tinker boy who is struggling with the Way of the Leaf and becomes important later down the road. And then they flee from some ravens, which we learn are the Dark One's eyes. It's how the Dark One sees what's going on in the world, because he can control and see through the eyes of ravens. I think it's really, they call them the Dark One's eyes, but I think it's really more like the Forsaken are seeing through the eyes of the birds and reporting back to the Dark One. They eventually run into some White Cloaks, the Children of the Light. We mentioned them earlier. Perrin kills 2 of them, defending some of his new wolf brothers, and they get arrested, and Nynaeve and Moraine and Lan rescue them from the White Cloak camp, and they all make their way to Camelin.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the buddy old boy trio of Rand, Matt, and Tom, when they escape, they, by pure absolute luck, which comes into play later as we learn more about our main Two Rivers boys,
being Taverin.
Yeah. Find passage on a boat, and that's where we meet Bail Doman.
Bail Doman.
Yeah, old Bail Doman.
Oh, Bail Doman.
But so they're on the ship. They've been able to pay for passage. And that's where on the ship that Rand discovers Matt's ruby hilted dagger from Shadar Logoth. But for some reason, doesn't exactly connect the fact that Matt is now acting differently. He's like angry and paranoid and thinks everybody's trying to steal his dagger, gold,
he's
coin.
Hiding in the corner going, my precious.
He's going full Gollum right now. All right, that's what's going on right now.
Ugly fat hobbits.
Stupid hobbits.
Stupid hobbits.
But Rand doesn't make the connection because as Rand's still oblivious. But they get river passage on Bail Doman's ship or boat all the way to White Bridge, and it's there that they're confronted by a Murdrawl in the crowded square, which is where we find out that a Murdrawl can kind of slip around unseen if they so desire. And it appears that Tom winds up sacrificing himself because he throws his flute and his harp into Rand's hands along with his cloak and tells him to run. And then they see a bright
tells them where to go in Camelin to meet him later if he lives.
To the Queen's blessing. And they hear a scream after a bright white flash, and they assume that Tom is dead. And they make their way as true vagabonds to along the way playing and juggling, playing music and juggling for their
food
meals
and board and passage.
Yeah. There's a very lucky episode, or it appears to be in a lucky episode, where they're kind of trapped in an inn that they've played to get a room in, and lightning happens to strike the outer wall, killing or immobilizing all the guys that are trying to get to them, and Rand and Matt are able to escape. But Matt has become progressively more and more paranoid and just agitated. That lightning strike actually leaves him blind for a short while, and Rand has to kind of guide him around. But they finally make it into Camelin to the Queen's blessing, and once they talk about how they know Tom, the innkeeper is more than happy to assist them, and that's where they meet the Ogier Loyal.
At the Queen's blessing.
Yeah, at the Queen's blessing. And while Matt seems to be sick and doesn't want to leave the bed and just wants to stay in the Queen's blessing, Rand decides he's going to go and see Camelin, which unbeknownst to him has been the seat of the ruler that claims right to where he's lived his whole life. And he catches a glimpse, and they've heard rumors the whole way. There's been all these refugees coming to Camelin to see Logain, who has been
the false dragon.
The false dragon. Rand's trying to catch a glimpse of him, and someone else sees him in the crowd and is kind of coming towards him. So Rand's like, "Fuck this, I'm out." Climbs a wall, and yet another true cliche fashion, or as the series ultimately teaches us, Taviran fashion, finds himself in the palace garden. That's where he meets Elaine Trakan, the heir daughter to the throne of Andor, and her brother Gawain, and then unfortunately her half brother Galad de Modrin, because Galad's like, "You're in custody."
Right. It's just a note. Elaine is the daughter heir. We'll get angry mentions on Twitter if we don't say it right.
Yeah. What did I say?
You said heir daughter.
Oh, my bad.
Like she flies around or something.
Oh, yeah, the heir daughter. Yeah, she's the daughter heir to the throne of Andor. So while in custody, Rand is taken, and he's brought before Queen Morghese and her Aes Sedai advisor, Elida. And Elida has a prophetic episode and identifies Rand as a dangerous individual. But Queen Morghese is like, "You don't have enough evidence. It's just just some kind of seizure vision."
Right.
So
even though
we're not going to imprison him.
Even though she believes in foretelling, which is what this is, and it's our first interaction with prophecy. Min has foretellings, but they're not prophecy per se. But this is like a full-on prophetic encounter, complete with blackouts and not remembering what you said, and other people having to tell you back what you said. So there's a lot of foretelling that happens later on in the series. If you want all that information, check out our 4-part prophecy series. We will not go into all of that here.
Yeah. So ultimately, Moraine, Lan, and Nynaeve, along with the freshly rescued Egwene and Perrin, make it to Camelin. They're reunited with Matt and Rand, and immediately Moraine recognizes Matt's so-called sickness as actually the corrupting influence of the dagger from Shatter Logos, and uses the one power to diminish its effects, but she can't heal him completely or break his attachment to it. Um, it's there that Loyal warns Moraine of a threat to the Eye of the World, which of course, our two river folks are like, what are you talking about? But Perrin and Egwene are able to corroborate the story because of the things they heard while they were with the Tinkers.
Right. It's
And
kind of a secondhand passed down information.
yeah,
And they're like, oh yeah, we've heard that before, the Eye of the World. Somebody said something about that, and it kind of connects all the dots for Moraine, who has kind of more information than anybody else in this group.
yeah. So, and this is corroborated, of course, by the dreams that Rand, Matt, and Perrin have had that involve Baalzamon. And Moraine makes the decision that, well, hey, we're not going to Tarvalin. We're going to the Eye of the World. We got to stop the Dark One, and we're going to use the Ways because we have an ogre with us. Which the Ways are known as they've been incredibly corrupted. They're degraded. It's not a place you want to go at all. But
it's kind of this. It's our first introduction to a way of traveling in the universe that doesn't involve walking or riding a horse or taking a ship. It's a faster way of getting someplace, and it's kind of like an outside dimension almost. There's no features. You're just kind of walking along these stone blocks from one place to another with bridges, and you could walk a day in the Ways and end up walking 100 miles or 1,000 miles. You don't know. Well, they don't use miles. They use like leagues or something.
yeah,
But it's kind of a really cool introduction to some of the many different ways of getting around quickly in the series, and a way of doing it that doesn't require weaving or magic to do so. It's been corrupted so badly that they are in fear for their lives when they're in the Ways. I think it's because the Ways were created using the male half of the power, which was tainted. So it's the taint, or part of the Dark One's taint on the world, or on the Sidar. Or is it Sidene? I can't remember.
Sidene is the male half.
It's the Dark One's taint that's corrupting them, and they're in fear for their lives. They find out that Trollocs have been in the Ways, and somebody, Lan, probably suggests that that's how the Trollocs got to the Two Rivers, unnoticed by the rest of the world. And we find out that there's these waygates in just about every major city and in a lot of the different places out in the country too. So they use the Ways. They get to Valdara, which is a borderland city, the border is the Blight, which is kind of this big, ever-growing stain on the land where everything dies, and there's shadow spawn in the Blight, and there has to be this kind of ring of borderland nations around it to hold back the Blight, and one of them is Valdara. We get introduced to a lot of new characters there, and a whole new nation in Valdara, and we get a little bit of Lan's backstory, that he is a king, or should be a king if his nation still existed.
Yeah.
But it had fallen to the Blight, and the uncrowned king, the last of his people, kind of standing alone against the Blight. He's vowed to fight from this day till his last day against Shadow Spawn.
The last sword of the Valkyrie.
Yeah. He's a badass. Then from there, they go in search of the Eye of the World, which is never in the same place twice. Nobody really knows how to find it. Moraine says something to the effect of, we can't find it, it finds us. You don't call me, I'll call you, something like that. So they go in search of it, and they end up finding it in the Blight in an unexpected location. We see the Green Man, who's kind of this larger than life figure, looks like a man, but he's really kind of made out of living vines, and it's really explained a lot better in the book than I can explain it. But
So messed up.
Yeah, we see the Green Man, who is also kind of the last of his kind, and he's guarding the Eye of the World, which we learn is a giant pool of untainted Sayadine, the male half of the power that some channelers kind of put together and set aside for this day. There's a bunch of argument about what they're going to do, who's going to do what. Rand gets pulled into a battle against the man who's been calling himself Beelzemon, who is really Ishamael, one of the Forsaken, and not the Dark One himself. But Rand doesn't know that. He thinks he's fighting the Dark One. I think he thinks he's fighting the last battle right then and there. He taps into the Eye of the World. He drains all of its power to defeat Ishamael. He kills him, he thinks, and kind of ends it. There was this big battle between the two of them, like on a platform way up in the air, and then he comes back down. I think in Tarwin's Gap, if I'm remembering correctly, he comes back down in Tarwin's Gap.
I think Tarwin's Gap happened. So before even the fight with Baalzamon, you meet the Forsaken, Agenor, and Balthamel. And Balthamel is actually killed by Someshta, or the Green Man.
Right.
And Agenor more than burns himself out by trying to wrestle for control of the Eye of the World from Rand, and turns himself into ash. And it's then that Rand, he's operating purely on just instinct and pure luck, and he essentially does some sort of like kind of travel and finds himself in Tarwin's Gap, and decimates the Trolloc army there that was fighting the Shinier army, or the army from Faldara.
Right.
And then that's when he comes back, is whenever Baalzamon shows up. And,
okay. Thanks for putting that all in order for me. I had it all messed up in my head.
Yeah, you're good, man. That's what we're here for.
Right.
But yeah, so Baalzamon, tries to sway Rand early on over to the Dark One side, more than he has in the dreams already, by showing Rand's mother, Cariathor, being tortured.
Who's been dead? She's been dead for years.
Yeah, we're gonna go with tortured by Murdral.
Torture plus.
Yeah, it's torture plus. So, knowledge back from, I think we talked about it in the Murdral episode, but even though they cannot reproduce with human or shadow spawn, they are known to take humans as their sexual playthings. And the way I read it is that at least some form of that was involved in this image of Cariathor being tormented by Murdral.
Right. And I want to take a really brief moment here to mention that I've heard and been a part of some discussions of how old people should be before they read these books. And this first book, The Eye of the World, is probably the tamest of all of them. Yeah. It has the least amount of references to people being naked or hooking up or anything like that. It has some language, but it's all shifted into the swearing of that age, so you don't have any swearing that we recognize in our age. It's all blood and bloody ashes and light blind me and I'm a wool-headed fool. It's all
You milk-faced
replacement swearing. Yeah, it's replacement swearing. But there are some hard to deal with subjects, like Rand being confronted with this mental projection of his mother, who is then raped by Myrdral and Trollocs, and it, like, right in front of him. And I've
I don't know if I go
seen
as far as saying like that the vision was her being raped. I think it was like an assault for sure.
right, but
I don't read the vision as going that far.
my point here is that it's going to trigger some uncomfortable conversations if you let your 12-year-old read the book. You know what I mean? If you're like, well, it's pretty tame, I'm going to let my younger kids read this book and save the other ones for when they're older, you're going to need to be prepared to have some adult conversations with them. Or at least in my opinion, you should have some adult conversations with them.
I mean, because at this point,
I'm not going to tell you how to parent your kids.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we're able to say what we're saying about this vision of the Myrdral tormenting Carialthor because of what we've learned of Myrdral, what we talked about in the previous podcast episode on Myrdral, and just kind of what the Myrdral are. But the more you delve into the series, the more you start to see the more less obvious adult humor, like the 9-horse hitch. Some of you will realize, because that's not spoiling anything.
No, it's just the name of an inn.
Yeah.
There's lots of little little adult jokes like that are like, the name of an inn is something sexual, or it's an allusion to something sexual, but they don't really talk about it. Or there's this object that does this thing that could be something sexual, but nobody really talks about it.
But I mean, luckily, a lot of the more intimate scenes are a lot of like hint, 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 and fade to black. You know?
It's off screen if you want to use stage writing or screenwriting language.
But there are some
happens
descriptions
off screen.
There are some descriptions that, though they're not overly detailed, they're enough to where you know exactly what's being talked about, and it could result in some uncomfortable discussions with potentially younger readers. At face value, I think that your kind of younger readers are going to be fine with the Eye of the World. But if, like most fans, they get sucked into the series and they want to read more and more and more, if you're someone that has young ones that wants to read the series, or nieces, nephews, whatever the case is, that you're looking at a series to get them into, this is something you need to be cognizant of. It's like buying, the first episode or the first movie in a series or whatever, or a trilogy or whatever. And this one is the regular version, but all the rest of them are the unrated version.
Right.
So definitely be aware of that. Be prepared for that.
Moving on, after this confrontation with Beelzemon, or Ishmael, Rand returns to the Eye of the World, and they find there was a box hidden underneath of the siding, which I think this is the only time we see siding represented as like a physical thing that everybody can see, almost like it's a pool of water, which I think Jordan kind of retconned later in the series. But hidden in that pool was a box, and in the box was the Horn of Villiers, which is an important object for later. And we just know that at this point, we know that it's something everybody is kind of looking for. We've heard rumors that the Horn of Villiers is being sought after. They've called for the hunt in another city. They've collected all these people to look for it, and whoever kind of holds the horn and blows it will control all of an army of the heroes of the past ages. So our heroes are kind of left in this place where they believe they've killed the Dark One, and they believe they have the Horn of Valir, which is going to give them an army of friendly heroes to help them. It's like 100 companions or something who are all legendary generals or fighters who've killed lots and lots of shadow spawn and great archers, things like that.
Yeah, because
so yeah, that's kind of
they
where
also find the dragon banner.
Oh yeah, the dragon banner is hidden there also,
as well as one of the 7 seals on the Dark One's prison,
which is a disc that contains the old Aes Sedai symbol, which has been separated now into 2 different symbols. One is the flame of Tar Valon, and the other one is the dragon fang, which you combine them together make something that's very similar to the classic yin yang symbol, just without the dots in either side. But the 2, they've been separated now because of the taint on siding, and so the White Tower, the Aes Sedai, have kind of removed themselves from any association with the male channelers. So they've kind of separated those 2 things out. But the seal is a physical representation of the seal on the Dark One's prison, or one of the seals, and it's made out of an unbreakable material.
But so like for the significance, obviously with it being the namesake of the book, the Eye of the World, as Aaron has already said, male and female Aes Sedai worked and filled it, which not going to get into it, but remember, because they needed both Sidon and Sidair to fill it with the essence of cleansed pure Sidon. Not going to spoil it for you, but remember that for later in the series. But it's said to contain enough power to either mend the seal on the Dark One's prison or break it open completely. And of course, that's why the Forsaken are there. They want to draw on it and break the seal on the Dark One's prison. And of course, Moraine hoping to have 3 Taviran there, hoping that it will tip things just enough in their favor to where they can protect the seal on the Dark One's prison.
Oh, yeah. Well, unless there's other stuff in this particular book, I think we've covered it all.
I just like I like the cheeky little thing that Moraine does at the very end. And it's another one of those, like, for me, almost kind of like chill moments, because they're at the end of the book, they're back in Faldara at the end of the book, aren't they? Or is that how it's
yeah, they return to Faldara.
Yeah, and Rand is on this balcony talking with Egwene and everything, and they're having this, conversation where Rand's like, I'm fucked. I'm gonna go. I'm condemned to go insane and kind of rot away and die. I'm a male Chandler, and Egwene's like, don't worry, we'll figure it out. Because of course only Moraine, Lan, Egwene, and Nynaeve know as of this point that Rand can channel
right.
the male half of the one power.
Egwene and Nynaeve both know because they have been revealed to be female channelers. Mm-hmm. And they're, I think at this point, they've both accepted that they're going to the White Tower to train and be Aes Sedai.
Yeah. Egwene wants to learn, and Moraine, Egwene wants to learn because she wants to be able to do it as an adventure. Nynaeve is like, I'm going to learn to use it, and I'm going to use it against Moraine to teach her a lesson. But the very ending scene, we see it earlier where Moraine was trying to work with Egwene to see if she can channel. She takes the sapphire gem off of her forehead, and they make light bolts from it. And the last scene of the book is Moraine is sitting in the courtyard, kind of down from the balcony that Rand and Egwene are on, out of normal earshot. And you see the gem kind of glowing, and she puts it back on her forehead and just kind of smiles to herself and says, the dragon is reborn.
Would you say it was flickering?
I would.
Yeah, that is a great way to end that kind of recap of the whole book that we just blew through in an hour. We wanted to split this episode into 2 parts, one with kind of a recap, and next week we are gonna hit this book up again and kind of dig a little deeper into specific thoughts and reactions that we had. There may be a few surprises in next week's episode. We are going to wait to reveal those until they're actually happening in true Robert Jordan style.
Yeah.
We'll
try not to hit you with the M. Night Shyamalan twist. Or maybe we will. God.
Maybe we will. Who knows?
Yeah.
He was dead the whole time.
I watched Unbreakable the other night. And
it's a great movie.
Yeah, it was good. Once I saw it was by M. Night Shyamalan, I was like, yeah, I mean, I already saw the twist coming, but it was even more obvious had I known that it was an M. Night Shyamalan movie, which I didn't.
Have you watched his new TV show, Twin Pines?
I have not. I don't get to watch a lot of TV.
It's a great show. I think it's available on Hulu to watch, but it's like, yeah, I'm not going to go into it, but it's definitely worth watching, and it's definitely like a return to classic M. Night Shyamalan, twisty, nothing revealed until the right time, not a lot of cheesiness. It was pretty good. I mean, he went astray a little bit after he tried to do a live action remake of The Last Airbender. Yeah. That was just an atrocity.
We're gonna pretend like you didn't mention that. That's on the same level as like a mentioning what is that, like Dragon Ball Evolution?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm only mentioning it because it was the thing that kind of downturned his career for a while. But yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. So we're going to wrap up our episode today, and you can join us next week to hear all the things that we think about this book and our kind of thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
You want to talk about Patreon?
Yeah. So some obvious housekeeping stuff. A little bit before the new year, we launched our Patreon. For those of you that so feel the desire to offer a little bit more support beyond your amazing listenership, I guess would be like I know it's not a word. There's no way that's a word, but close enough, right?
Close enough. We'll make it a word.
Yeah, it's a word now. But it's a way where those of you that have the ability and the desire to, of course, by no means necessary, but can, if you would like to, you can help support us financially. Obviously, there are costs along with the hosting and production of the podcast. And we've set a goal on there to try to hit about $50 a month or so. That would be great. That'd be awesome. And that would cover the hosting cost, production cost, and potentially, and a little bit left over for eventual maybe equipment upgrades. So maybe we can bring some better quality content to you guys, because we definitely want to bring you the best content we can. But with that, we would not ask or offer it up for anyone to take and support us this way without trying to give you something extra in return for your extra support. And of course, Patreon, we're trying to ever evolve it to increase things to make it more enjoyable for those of you that are able and are willing and just incredibly kind enough to help us out that way. So there's 3 tiers. There's the soldier tier, which is $1 a month. There's the dedicated tier, which is $5 a month, and the Ashman tier, which is $10 a month. At the soldier tier, you get the soldier role in our Discord, which denotes you as a Patreon supporter for the Black Tower podcast, and you also get the opportunity to record a spoiler warning for us for the episodes where we have spoilers from the series. And for the most part, we're kind of leaving this. We talk about generically what we need to make sure at least is in a spoiler warning, but we're letting you guys kind of make your own spoiler warning. And we can record it live with you. We've done that we tried to do that with one, but the internet didn't want to cooperate that day. But we've done that. We've had people, they're going to record their own and send it to us via email or whatever platform. But so that's there. For our dedicated and Ashaman tiers, you will get at least it says monthly, and we'll basically just put them out as we get enough for it. There will be at least one a month. It's a blooper / pre-recording reels or sound bits where sometimes we're just talking beforehand or BSing or whatever we're doing. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's cringe. Who knows? But we'll get that posted on Patreon for you guys so you can see a little bit more kind of behind the scenes of what happens maybe before, maybe after what everybody hears in the actual podcast. And of course, that's at the dedicated and Ashaman tiers. And with those tiers, there's also something that we're going to do. We're going to do a monthly movie night where we take and get together in the Discord and a Discord channel that we'll have set up for it, and to watch a movie, and we'll have all the dedicated and Ashaman Patreons can talk together, and we'll all talk and figure out a good day, a good time, what movie everybody wants to see. We'll get a couple recommendations together and figure out which one we're going to watch, and everything. And it should be a lot of fun. I've done it with a couple other patrons or Twitch streamers in the past, and it was a lot of fun. It's just something where you can kind of come, hang out, we can relax, chill together, enjoy a good movie. Just something where you get something extra. I mean, obviously you can go and watch movies on your own, but this hopefully will bring at least a couple people together where we can all sit down and watch a movie together. Who knows? Maybe once the series comes out, we can get together and watch the series together.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
do some viewing parties for the episodes that are in the show.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, we do have some more stuff in the works for one or more of these tiers. Obviously, the higher tiers are going to have more unique stuff, or obviously, everything. We can't give a soldier everything that an Ashaman gets, just like in the series.
Right.
And that's just it's nothing against the people that can only do maybe $1 a month or whatever the case is. That support is still obviously amazing and outstanding. But there should be some kind of like specific or more, I don't want to say more unique or different rewards for those that just happen to be able to or want to do more, because we want to reward people as much as we can with respect to reference to other people's support as well. So yeah, you can find that. What is the Patreon link again? I swear I just looked at it. It's just patreon.com/Black Tower Pod.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Easy. Black Tower Pod is our Google name as well. So if you want to send us an email, it's at blacktowerpod, or it's blacktowerpod@gmail.com. I'm sorry, I'm getting my social media platforms mixed up here. If you want to get us on Twitter, it's at Tower Podcast. It's a little different there. We're also on Instagram, not as strongly. We don't come as strongly into the Instagram world.
Not yet, at least.
But that's at Black Tower Pod there as well, I think.
And of course,
but yeah,
you can find us on our hosting site, which is podbean.com. You can go to blacktowerpod.podbean.com.
Right.
Yeah, and on there, there's a link to the Twitter, there's a link to the YouTube, our Facebook, There's a Discord link, and there's also a direct link to the Patreon, along with all of our episodes. There's a little about section where there's a little blurb about me. Aaron has a little blurb about him. There's a contact section that details where you can email us and how you can contact us and such. And there's also, for everyone that does support us on Patreon, and if you want a different name than what your Patreon name is, just send us a message and let us know, and we'll do that. But we're going to keep a running list of all of our Patreon supporters and what tier that they are supporting us. And right now we've got there's 3 on the list right now. So amazing support that we're just incredibly grateful for.
Yeah, more than we thought we'd ever have.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
So yeah, feel free to reach out to us. We tend to respond pretty quickly, and we kind of keep track of people's reactions to and questions about different episodes that we've done, and try and respond to those in a bonus midweek podcast that comes out that everybody can get, where we kind of mention who you were, what your question was, and talk about it a little bit. Maybe we'll do a little research into your question, or maybe it's a personal question and we'll answer that there. We know everybody enjoyed the crossover podcast we did with the White Tower. Some people are calling it the Two Towers episode. We know everybody enjoyed that. We are working on getting more guests like that onto the show. The format won't always be the same, but we'll try and bring you the same quality or better of a podcast.
Yeah, there's some stuff in the work, so we're
it's exciting. We don't want to announce anything until it's actually like recorded, but it's coming. It'll be great. Stay tuned for that. What else?
And if you think of something that you'd like to see us do, whether it's a topic that you want to hear us talk about, my roommate.
Yeah, we're paying attention to that too. Yeah, we're paying attention to your suggestions about what kind of episodes to do, and we are planning those out in the future, kind of researching them, putting them into the order we want to do them in, and those will be coming out soon too.
And we've
already done some user suggestion episodes already.
Yeah, and you will get credit for your suggestion. We will shout you out in the podcast and say, "Hey, this idea, like you've already heard with what wound up being the 4-part series on prophecies." We shouted out the Twitter user
Midnight Rider.
Yeah, Midnight Rider or Renegade for that suggestion. And we'll do the same for any other suggestions that we cover. We make sure that with our notes we put, not just what the suggestion was, but who suggested it and where they suggested it, whether it was Discord, email. I guess it could in the future possibly be Patreon or, just wherever it's from.
Right. If you haven't already joined the Twitter Wheel of Time community, I suggest that you do that. There's some great people who are pretending to be characters from the series who are tweeting as characters. There's a lot of people who are just interacting about the series, the book series, and speculating about the show. The showrunner, Rafe Judkins, is on there weekly, if not daily, talking about stuff, asking people questions, leaking little non-spoilery tidbits about the show, and kind of reminding us that production is moving forward and it's not going to go away. It is going to happen. Some of his one of his content advisors, Sarah, is on there all the time as well, and she's great. She's kind of shepherding their side of the interactions, making sure that everything happens and keeps happening. So there's a lot of great stuff happening on Twitter involved in Wheel of Time. If you don't have Twitter, now's the time.
I see what you did there.
Yep.
Now's the time for Twitter of Time.
I was hoping everybody would pick up on it. I think that's it for us. We are going to sign off and go to bed.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
For those of us at the Black Tower, I'm Aaron.
And I'm Andrew.
And may you always find shade and water.